Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Inside Track to Success. As always, I'm your host, Stewart Kraintz. And again, we do have another really awesome guest for you today. And before I intro him, I just want to ask you guys, please hit the like button, please hit subscribe. Also, share this with a friend. This show is 100% free. And, maybe just the cost of admission is just sharing it with somebody so that they can gain this knowledge, get these tools and these lessons to help them create the best version of their lives. And, we can't spread the message, spread, these tools if people don't know about it. So do what you can, please share it out. And just to dive right into it with you all, this is somebody that I definitely look up to. As you guys know by now, I am a distance runner. I love endurance sports. I love it as not only just proving that I can do hard things to myself, but also just what it does for my mindset each and every day. And this person is not only an absolute expert on health and fitness, helping people with their own body transformations, but is himself a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo. He's also a national age group champion for the United States obstacle course racing and is a team relay champion as well. And quite frankly, just posts the most incredible stuff on Instagram all the time that blows me away that anybody can do it. And without further ado, I want to introduce Vinnie Dangerfield. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, Stu. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate that sharing and the acknowledgement. Really means a lot, man. I don't think I know how much of an impact when I just share things authentically or organically that it can really truly inspire people, even when they might not comment, they might not like, but there's still somebody out there watching. The algorithm might say otherwise, but there's always somebody watching.
Yeah, and that's actually why we do this show. Like, I choose to believe whoever's meant to hear this episode, this conversation is meant to hear it, and they'll gain the nuggets and the wisdom that they're supposed to. And I know that you are somebody that does coach people both on their physical health, on their strength, their conditioning, bodily transformation, but you also focus pretty heavily on the mindset too that goes into it. And so I'd love it if you can maybe just kick this off by sharing with people how you got into the work that you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So back in undergrad, I started studying exercise science. I graduated from Kent State University with my bachelor's in exercise science, but also my focus and minor was in psychology as well. Could have had my full bachelor's degree in it, but I just didn't want to take more Spanish. I had taken enough Spanish classes in high school. I didn't want to keep taking more. So that was the only thing that held me back from having a dual major. But one thing that I noticed, leading up into my collegiate career was how much mindset really did influence people. One of my biggest influences in my life was my grandmother, and she loved everyone. She always put other people forward and supported them and encouraged them, all of the things. And she unfortunately didn't really know how valuable she was to those people. She made them feel valuable. She helped them recognize how incredible they were, myself included, but she didn't really understand how important she was. And because she didn't mentally and consciously know, she didn't prioritize her health. And that really affected me. And so even in undergrad, I told one of my professors, I was like, I actually want to have a psych minor. And she's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Most nowadays it's kind of common to hear fitness and mindset coaching,
Sure.
but that wasn't common 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago or anything like that, but growing up in martial arts, discipline was always the main priority. You can't master your body without mastering your mind. And so I just kind of kept taking that on into everything else that I was doing or that I would do. And then finally, when I was, fairly green in my coaching career, I took it upon myself to start having one-on-one conversations more with my clients as opposed to just training sessions, right? They would come in for,
Mhm.
30 minutes, an hour, whatever it may have been at that time, and then they would leave. And then they would come back and there would be no progress. They would still
Mhm.
be eating the same thing. They would tell me how stressed they were. And just because the context that was set by, management or by just even the industry, the fitness industry, right? Like you come in for a session, you leave, and then if you wanted nutrition, you would have to go over here to a dietitian. And if you wanted mindset, you would have to go to a therapist or a psychologist or something like that, right? And it wasn't really all that all inclusive quite yet. And so I just started having conversations like, hey, listen, we can use this as another quote unquote session, but I really want to sit down with you and hear what's going on in your life. Because every single week you come in and you still haven't hit the goal. Like, what's going on? Like, let's walk through this. And really, at first, it just started with having conversations. I didn't really have a formula or a curriculum or a system or really even a strategy at that point. I was just having conversations with them, but continuing to leverage my education in psychology and then continuing to do my own research and participate in various other organized events. And that kind of alludes to how you and I met,
Mhm.
taking on some emotional intelligence trainings and workshops and seminars really put me into more of an authoritative space, right? There's one thing about understanding something. And so this was actually even recently discerned to me and I loved it. So this is
Yeah.
really what I've been prioritizing and refocusing on with a lot more of my clients and everything, and even correcting them and catching them when they start saying these things. But they're like, I know I should be eating this and I should be doing that. They kind of get into this I know kind of syndrome. And I correct them and I cut them off gently, be like, no, 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 no. You don't know that. You understand it on a logical level. You understand that 1 + 1 = 2, right?
Mhm.
You understand that. But if you can't actually use that formula and apply it to making money, then you don't know it. Same thing. Yes, of course, you understand that you should be eating healthy. Yes, of course, you understand that you need to be getting, 8,000 plus steps a day, but you don't know it, because if you actually knew it, you would choose it.
Mm.
And so that was really getting them into a place of recognizing, okay, cool, I understand what's not working in my life. I can comprehend it on a conscious level, but I don't really know it quite yet. And so that's what I've been doing now, more so the past 6, really 7 years, of really supporting people is shifting their mindset, shifting their interpretations, shifting their perspectives on not just how they look at their health, but really how they also look at life.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for sharing all that. That's a really amazing jumping off point for this conversation. For me personally, I'm 33 years old. I'm actually in the best shape of my life since high school varsity basketball. And my 20s were absolutely fraught with pain, sickness, injury, all these things. And what I heard you say just now is almost like once the person takes ownership of where they're at, maybe they don't have all the answers, maybe they don't know exactly what to do, but taking ownership of this begins and ends with me is how I'm actually going to get the results that I want. And I'm just curious, how do you get people from going from understanding to that knowing that you were talking about?
Yeah, I love that question, because most people don't really know that there's processes and or breadcrumbs to what they have or don't have in their life,
Mhm.
right? A lot of people, kind of to your point, the opposite of responsibility is denial or victimized or just passive, right?
Mhm.
And you have to actively choose, you have to actively know what it takes to get to said destination or achieve said goal, right? So just even traveling to, I don't know, Arizona or, you know, Philadelphia or something, right? Like you have to know the exact coordinates. You can't just say, okay, cool, I'm going to travel east and then hope to land there. Oh, I'm going to travel west and then hope to land in Arizona, whatever it is, right? You have to have a clear plan and a clear strategy. And so first off, it just starts with, okay, well, where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
Just getting them clear on a vision for their life. And more often than not, people just say, oh, well, I want to, it's like a short-term vision, right? It's like a vacation. Okay. And most people have short-term visions because we do these things that require that short-term action. So like, for example, when they are thinking about a vacation, right, that's temporary. So they only want to look good for that vacation because it's already, the context is based on temporal experiences, right? Same thing with even just our phones. We're not practicing the vision of looking at something into the distance. You know, primitively, especially men would go hunt and they would have to go and find things at longer distances. So we were quite literally practicing that physicality of things, and we don't have that anymore. And so just building up that vision practice is the first step. And then beyond that, we go into the meaning of it. So again, that's great that you want to travel to Arizona or you want to go to Philly or something like that and get super clear on it, but why?
Mm-hmm.
One of my mentors, one of my coaches, Tony Robbins, I just wrapped up an 10-month coaching program with one of his coaches. And he always talks about how a life of achievement is worth nothing without fulfillment.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. And so like, that's great that you actually finally got to the destination. You were able to get so clear on the goal. You were able to get so clear on the vision. That's amazing. But why? And so we get clear on the meaning, and getting clear on the meaning isn't just the affirmative and the positive and like the happy-go-lucky experiences. It's based on also the pain that we might potentially experience if we don't ever achieve it.
Wow. Yeah.
Because more often than not, people are typically avoiding the pain so much that they don't even understand that that is also powerful.
Wow.
Yeah. And then of course, from there, we go into the strategies, right? And then, you know, macros and biomechanics and all of those things, right? And then accountability, you know, follow-ups and et cetera, right? All of those systems and those processes. But the biggest first two steps are getting clear on the vision and the meaning behind it.
So in your experience in getting them and getting your clients and other folks connected to their vision and the why, do you often experience that positive, like I want to have X or Y, or is it that more negative based, like maybe that fear based motivator is a stronger pull for people?
Yeah. So I want to clarify on the negative,
Mm-hmm.
because what a lot of people do when I ask them, like, hey, what do you want? Well, I don't want this.
Right.
Okay. So what do you actually want then? I don't know. Like, you tell me. I'm not here to
Yeah.
fill in the answers. I'm not here. This isn't my question. This
Sure.
isn't my survey, right? You're coming to me for support, counsel, coaching, whatever it is, feedback,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm not the one being tested here. You've got to tell me, what do you actually want, right? And so that's right there alone, the very first thing that we've got to also sometimes clarify is because a lot of people defer to what they don't want. Now that's a difference of getting clear on the exact pain of it, right? So if we were to say, okay, cool, I don't want to be sad. All right, well then what do you actually want?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want happiness. Okay, cool. Why is that so valuable to you? Got it. And if you weren't happy, what would happen?
Yeah.
Then we start filling that in. And how would that then impact you? Oh, well, I wouldn't be able to, you know, enjoy time with my family, you know, my lifespan might be shorter, et cetera, right?
Sure.
And so, yeah, so at first people more often defer not to necessarily the negative, but it's just the sheer absence of. Like
Yeah.
they're just speaking into the void per se.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, you're somebody that I experience as having a lot of discipline, pretty connected to your why, just in the actions I see you take, and the goals that I've seen you work on and crush. What currently is driving you, and what is your why, just in case that is inspirational to anybody listening to this?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Mine has evolved for sure over
Absolutely.
time, and so I also want to clarify for anybody who's listening is that like your vision, just like you're a living human being. Okay.
Hmm.
So if we know that your goals and your vision are an extension of you, then that means that they are malleable and they are growing and evolving just as much as you are. So my vision has grown over the years, right? It was more so in the sense of needing to prove something, because growing up, my mom is a teacher. She still is a teacher, but growing up, she was teacher, principal, uh, you know, um, board of education representative, all those things. And so I just only knew performance, right? But that goes back to kind of what I was talking about earlier, is that I was constantly trying to strive for these levels of achievement, but there was nothing to fulfill because it was just
Mm.
checking of a box. It
Yeah.
was just like a one and done, and there wasn't really anything to continue to carry over. And so, of course, every time I would accomplish something, it would be fulfilling to an extent because I was getting notification from somebody else. But once that was done, once somebody either forgot about that achievement or whatever it was, I would thus forget about it. And so like I would try and find something new to go after. So at first, probably leading up until really my undergraduate experience, I was looking for that achievement. I stepped into rugby because I needed to feel significant, you know. But it wasn't until I started my own fraternity in undergrad, I stepped into the president position and in the role
Wow.
where I had to focus on supporting other people and
Yeah.
showing them what's possible. So our whole motto of my fraternity is being a true gentleman. And so that right there alone shifted my perspective. And so I stopped focusing on what was I able to create, and I started focusing on, okay, cool, what can I create for other people? So when in doubt, focus out. So now I continue to do the things in this kind of space of both and. I want to achieve something just from the sheer joy or the fun or the experience of it. And like life is a game
Hmm.
and might as well have fun. And also taking my experiences and being able to share my stories or lessons learned or mistakes or whatnot on a podcast or on a social media post or just with a client or
Yeah.
just with somebody that I run past on the trail or whatever it is, and they're like, running a 12-minute pace, and I maybe lap them or something like that, and like it's not a matter of, hey, I'm faster than you. It's like, hey, dude, like where are you at in your journey? Where are you at in your experience? Like, hey, I can totally relate. Like I hated running, like it was punishment back in the sports days. Or in organized sports, and like being on the team, like that was punishment. Now I enjoy it because it's fun, but because my perspective and my vision and my meaning all changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm hearing you talk a lot about service, focusing out, pouring into other people. But I really love that you shared about starting the fraternity. And I'm really interested just in the question of community,
Mm,
like whether you are on a weight loss journey or signing up to run your first marathon. I have found in my personal journey that over and over again, community, surrounding yourself with people that are like minded and they're going to challenge and push you is beneficial. Like, I actually don't think I'd be here without it. And I'm curious what your thoughts are for people that maybe have goals, have dreams, but aren't surrounded by an environment that is nurturing and supporting them, and how they can change that.
yeah. Uh, this is a great question. It might not sound to everybody like it sounds like relatively general, but this is so specific. This resonates so hard with me. because when I think of community and, I'm taking actions to move forward personally and professionally because of this sole knowing that I am the average of the 5 people I spend the most time with.
Mhm.
And at first, it might be tough because typically the community that we grow up with at first is our family.
Yeah.
And more often than not, it is tough for us to recognize what's working or not working in our family unit and our community because we don't know what we don't know. And if we did know, then we would hopefully be doing something about it. But if we don't do something about it and we still know, that's negligence. And negligence, in my experience, doesn't even hold up in the court of law. So why should it hold up in our own lives? Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, community is everything. Because I know high tides also rise all ships. So you can have a big boat, you can have a little tiny boat, but no matter what, we're all going to rise together just because of the sheer volume and the sheer force of the actual container itself. And the container itself is based on the context of the community. So if you're surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, more often than not, the people who are even having that sort of conversation that they want to surround themselves with like-minded individuals are going to be trying to pursue and push themselves. Like, I didn't even know about that like-mindedness until like undergrad. Like my family wasn't having conversations around like, hey, Vinny, like go and do this because you're going to be around like-minded people. Like, hey, go do this because you're going to be challenged, and like your beliefs are going to be questioned. Like I wasn't having conversations like that. And so the first thing, if anybody is looking to shift into a community or grow around a community, or create your own community, right? Like anybody listening, in essence, Stu, you're creating your own community and everything. First one is recognizing which ones you're actually a part of.
Yeah.
So like, again, I didn't know that my community at first was my family. Okay. Now I love my family. Don't get me wrong. Right. And though I also understand that they're just playing a different game than what I am. And that's okay. The second thing is, getting admitted into a community isn't as easy of just signing up. You have to also understand that there is value to be shared.
Sure.
And so you, like, for example, if I wanted to be around the top 5 billionaires in the world, it's just not going to, quite frankly, am I allowed to swear on here?
Go ahead. Go for it.
Quite frankly, it's not going to fucking happen. Okay. All right. Because I don't have, you could debate that I have the value, but they're not even going to hear the value that I have if I'm not operating at a similar frequency. Just like the dial of a radio. So you've got to be able to understand not only the community that you want to get into, sure, but you've got to make sure you understand what sort of value you're bringing to the table, because the admission isn't just going to come easily. Now, yes, of course, don't get me wrong. You could debate like, oh, okay, well, I'm a part of a community at my church or at my place of work or with my run club, and it's free. Okay, sure. But truthfully, the people who are going to help you grow in that community are going to be challenging you so much that you might not necessarily just be paying financially, but you're going to be paying with your time and your attention.
Sure.
And so now you've got to take in inventory of saying, okay, well, what's the cost of this, or what's the benefit? And then that's really when the prices start showing up. And so I've paid to be around people also, just to be in their sheer vicinity and just to have some sort of connection. And I don't think people really understand that if they really want to elevate their lives, they have to be willing to invest somehow, some way.
Yeah.
And so even if starting off at first, somebody wants to step into, like, for example, I don't give any coaching away for free. Yes, of course, I have a consultation and everything, right? But I'm never taking somebody through a 12-month transformation for free, because when you pay attention, right? And so in essence, they're paying for the proximity of me, of my knowledge, right? And so now you're a part of my community. You're a part of other clients who have also invested to get in proximity with me. Now, I didn't have to pay you to be friends with you. I didn't have to pay to be on your podcast, right? But because
Right.
we exchange value, we have still paid in a different way. So it doesn't
Absolutely.
always have to be monetary, right? But again, we're paying with attention, we're paying with our time, we're paying with just sheer energy, right? And emotion, right? But I think really truthfully, people have to understand not only what community they're in and where they want to go and what sort of value, but they've got to be willing to pay somehow, some way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just hit on something really beautiful that I find myself talking with my clients about over and over and over again, which is just the reciprocity of energy.
Mm,
And so you hit on something really important. Like if you want to be in a certain circle, you get to provide a certain amount of value to be in that circle. And yeah, it could be financial, but it could also just be like your expertise, your skills, sometimes even just your friendship. Honestly, like you never know what just being a shoulder for somebody to lean on can provide in a certain context. Like obviously, you gave the example of like 5 billionaires. They're probably set, they're probably good to go. They have their people for that. But if you want to be rubbing shoulders with people that are movers and shakers, there is a certain level of value to be provided as kind of an admission to the process. Like my goal is to make this show as big as I possibly can. And, getting a Mark Cuban or, any of the sharks on Shark Tank, I get this show to a certain level before they're even going to look my way. And I know that, and that's okay.
yeah.
Right. And my challenge to anybody listening to this, and Vinny, absolutely jump in here, like, don't underestimate the value that you can provide right now, exactly as you are in this moment.
Mhm.
Because, yes, we all have things to aspire to, but we also have natural gifts and talents that are beneficial and can be shared either for financial compensation or even just to grow the relationships that we have. And I guess I'm just curious what your thoughts on that, on people harnessing their own talents and gifts and creating from there.
Yeah. Uh, that's wonderful to hear because with that being said, and I'll answer it in the context of exercise.
Sure.
Uh, First off, a lot of people don't provide value because they don't understand how valuable and worthy they are.
Facts.
Right. And so, of course, I've got my little hand gesture because I like talking with my hands. I guess we're going to leave the thumb up for right now. Maybe it's gone. Okay. Uh,
We can edit that out. It's all good.
it's fair. Leave it in. It's comical. So first off, it starts with knowing how infinite of a being you are.
Facts.
You are a divine spiritual being having a human body experience, and it's not the other way around. Right. And so if you understand how infinite and vast the universe is and who created that, then you yourself have inherent value.
Mhm.
But again, if going back, if you don't know, you don't know, then if you could know, what would it take to figure that out? So
Mhm.
maybe there's a lot of self-discovery,
Yeah.
and it's the baby steps like that. So relating it to fitness, some people are like, well, Vinny, I can't afford to step into that coaching program with you, et cetera, but I really want this. And I've seen online, I need to be doing this and doing that and whatever. And I go, yes, I hear you. I love that. Of course. Tell me how many steps a day you get. And they're like, I don't know. I go, okay, well, cool. Do you know what a pedometer is? And they're like, yeah. I was like, all right, cool. Go grab one. Go get one.
Mhm.
They're like $20 or less online. All right, go to Amazon. I don't care. Or again, because some people hear that and they're like, well, I can't afford a Garmin, or I can't afford an Apple Watch, or whatever it is. Okay, cool. Break it down. Get back to what are the core values? What are the core things that you can offer or that you have access to? Get back to the basics of those and then start building up from there. But a lot of people don't, they already sell themselves short because, again, they see themselves of like, okay, well, cool, I want to go and interview this person, or I want to be in this network of worth, right? And they're like, oh, well, I have no clue of how to get there, right? They don't see the immediate next step, right? Well, it's like, of course, you're not going to see that. It might not even become visible until you've taken 100 steps to get there. You know, I didn't see myself running a marathon until I had ran a couple halves. And then I didn't even see myself running a couple halves until I had ran a couple obstacle halves. And those were actually technically even harder. But I, for whatever reason, was making it harder than what I thought.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even pursue that because I saw people get injured, right? And so more often than not, too, we end up letting just fear limit us. And so that's, again, something that we've got to get clear on when we're stepping into all of these other opportunities, is what's the fear that's holding us back.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting underneath that fear, y'all, more often than not, like our excuses, our fears are actually based in some type of truth. Like, of course, you could get hurt running a race, absolutely in the realm of possibility. But what if you didn't? Right? Like,
Right.
what if you not only didn't get hurt, but you also crushed whatever you thought was possible for yourself on your finishing time? And what if your knees didn't hurt at the end of it? Like, failing to see what we can possibly gain by just taking the next step and committing and doing the work. And in the case of endurance sports, training and just showing up and putting in that equity with ourselves every day, doing that as opposed to letting the fear win out is pretty much a guarantee that we're never going to reach our goals or our objectives. And going back to the concept of providing value, it's like choosing that you're not going to have value to provide to somebody before you even get out of the starting gate, so to speak. And so for someone like you, Vinny, I know that you have done a lot of races, a lot of obstacle course races as well. What are the next challenges that someone like you is excited about, maybe signed up for, maybe not, but let's hear it.
Yeah. So recognizing that, because I love the law of reciprocity, right? For every action, there's an equal or an opposite reaction. So I have to leverage my fear, and I have to leverage my courage and my excitement and passion and enthusiasm for it. I have to get super, super clear on both of them and not shy away from one or the other, you know? And so one of my goals, of course, this year, and I've already done it, but now it's really, really pushing myself, is, going to one of the highest elevated mountains that I'll be running on for the obstacle course racing world championships in Mammoth Lakes, California.
Wow.
And, 32, and, you would think that the younger age groups are more challenging because they're younger, right? But if anything, it keeps going. Like the guys who are in these age groups just keep getting faster and faster. Like, it's crazy. So, I've got to be willing to risk a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of pain. I've got to be willing to risk that, and so that's one big thing. I definitely want to do some more marathons, of course. I have a good friend and colleague who keeps trying to get me to do a 100-miler with him. And I'm like, dude, let me just get to 50 then, like, so I think there's going to be that natural trajectory there. I've coached clients into triathlons, but I haven't done a full like Ironman, just because it hasn't been on my radar. And so a lot of people think too of like, well, Vinny, how could you coach somebody into an experience that you haven't had? It's just like the coaches in the NBA. They may have never gone to the championship finals, or even coached or even been a part of a team that like made postseason every year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But because they know the fundamentals and the basics, and they know how to coach up players and athletes and bring them to their highest self, like that's because it's possible. They show them what's possible, right? So the same thing for me. So fortunately enough, as a coach, right, like you can't just like, okay, cool, I'm gonna a basketball coach wouldn't be able to just be like, all right, cool, I'm gonna put on my jersey today and now I'm gonna play. I fortunately have that opportunity to kind of have both hats, where I'm still an athlete and I can still also coach people into other opportunities. So definitely a triathlon for sure. And then just in general, my wife and I would love to expand our family, and just continue to travel. And with traveling, comes other requirements, right? Availability of time, resources, that sort of thing. So I get to continue to stretch and push myself financially to be able to make it all work as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And something awesome that you just said, going back to NBA finals, because I'm a hoops head. Of the 4 teams currently remaining at the time of this recording, only one of the coaches actually was an NBA player himself. And so, to your point of
Wow.
everything you just shared, it's not so much about having done it before, but it's about believing that you can and just going for it. And
Yeah.
with all the races and fatherhood ahead of you, and, you know, going anywhere that you and Lindsay want to go, like, really, it's just what you decide you can or can't do. And I hope that anybody listening to this is taking that away as well.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I got to tell you, this has been a really awesome conversation. Like, I'm pumped, honestly. Like, I'm ready to go hit the road and put in some miles
Let's
myself. But,
go.
um, Vinny, I know that you are somebody that is a coach, works with clients in a lot of ways. Where and how are the best ways for folks to get in contact with you?
Yeah, super simple. Just follow Coach Vinnie Dangerfield on Facebook, and then on Instagram, just at me for Vinnie.Dangerfield. Vinnie.Dangerfield.
And we will 100% have Vinny's contact info in the description of these episodes. So you can go ahead and click on through, get connected with him, follow him, because he gives a lot of great inspiration and advice as well. And before we head out, Vinny, I ask this of every guest, but I want to know, what can you acknowledge yourself for today?
Ooh, come on now. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I want to acknowledge myself for trusting the process. So, just a little bit ago, before even taking this podcast together, I was coaching my clients. I had a coaching call.
Yeah.
And looking back on the past 12 years of my professional career, but then also beyond that, there's been a lot of trust in the process. And there have been a lot of fearful moments. There has been some traumatic experiences, but then there's also been some incredible celebrations to it. And I'm just very proud and grateful that I've been continuously trusting the process, even though when signs said otherwise, or even when something was so good, I wanted to let go of it, thinking that it wasn't going to be permanent. I still held on to it because I knew it was so valuable and I knew I was deserving of it. And so I'm very honored and grateful and proud of trusting the process.
Yeah, man. For those of y'all listening, trust is a part of going for any goal, any dream, any ambition. And so, whatever obstacles you're facing, please continue to trust the process in your own life, and also reach out for support. There's no reason you got to go it alone. And so, on that note, guys, this has been your Inside Track to Success. Again, I am your host, Stewart Kraintz. here with Vinnie Dangerfield. We thank you for being a part of this episode today. If you got any value today, please let us know in the comments. Please share the biggest takeaways, the aha moments, the nuggets. Tag Vinnie or myself. We'd love to hear from you. Connect in with you guys and continue to provide more value off of this podcast as well. So thank you guys for being here today, and we'll catch you next episode.